The sky above New Washington Colony burned, not metaphorically. Actual fire rippled across the atmosphere as the Keldaran orbital bombardment continued its 13th straight hour. Commander Jack Thorne watched from the command bunker 200 meters below ground as another settlement disappeared from the tactical display. Just static, then nothing. 5,000 colonists. "That's Anderson's Ridge," he muttered, the words barely audible over the distant rumble that penetrated even this far underground. They weren't even a military target. Lieutenant Sarah Walker nodded grimly beside him, her eyes sunken from 3 days without proper sleep. "The Keldarans don't distinguish between military and civilian. We've known that since Dover Station." Dover Station. The thought made Thorne's stomach twist. 10,000 lives snuffed out in the opening salvo of this one-sided war. A research station whose only crime was detecting the Keldaran fleet 12 hours before they arrived at the edge of the Tau Ceti system. "Status report," Thorne barked, shaking off the memory. The tactical officer, a kid named Miller, who couldn't be more than 25, swiped through holographic displays with practiced efficiency. "Orbital defenses are at 12% capacity. We've lost contact with outposts 3 through 7. The civilian evacuation is only at 38%. Not enough. Not nearly enough. And the Keldarans?" Miller swallowed hard. "No appreciable losses, sir. Their shields are holding against everything we've thrown at them." Of course they were. Human technology was a sad joke compared to the Keldaran Empire. The aliens had mastered faster-than-light travel centuries ago, while humanity had barely established a handful of colonies in neighboring star systems using sleeper ships and primitive fusion drives. The bunker shook, dust raining from the ceiling as another impact struck somewhere above. "They're getting closer," Walker observed needlessly. Thorne studied the main strategic display. The Keldaran fleet, 73 warships, ranging from nimble destroyers to the massive dreadnoughts that served as their flagship, had positioned themselves in a standard orbital bombardment formation. They were being methodical, thorough, no rush. Why hurry when your opponent couldn't hurt you? "Sir!" The communications officer's voice cracked with sudden urgency. "We're receiving a transmission from the Keldaran." The room fell silent. "Put it through," Thorne ordered. The main display flickered, revealing the alien commander. Keldaran physiology wasn't so different from human bipedal, 2 arms ahead, but the similarities ended there. Their grey-green skin had a wet sheen to it, and those 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern showed no emotion. Thorne could recognize. "Human commander." The translation software rendered the words with artificial precision. "I am Supreme War Leader Kraz. Your resistance has become tedious." Thorne straightened, conscious of his filthy uniform and the exhaustion that must show on his face. "This is Commander Jack Thorne of the Earth Colonial Defense Force. You're killing civilians, War Leader. A distinction without meaning. Your species represents a potential threat to Keldaran expansion. Your elimination has been determined as necessary. We never even knew you existed until you attacked Dover Station," Thorne protested, though he knew it was useless. Those alien eyes blinked in sequence. Top, right, bottom, left. "Your ignorance is irrelevant. Your star charts show ambition. Any species with ambition eventually becomes competition." So that was it. They'd been condemned for having the audacity to dream of the stars. "I offer you efficiency," Kraz continued. "Surrender your command codes. Deactivate your remaining defenses. We will make your extinction quick." Walker stiffened beside Thorne, Miller's hands clenched into fists. "And if we refuse?" Thorne asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then we will take pleasure in being thorough. Your remaining population centers will be eliminated one by one. Slowly. The choice between quick and prolonged extinction is the only mercy I offer." The transmission cut. The Keldaran hadn't even bothered to wait for a response. "Sir?" Walker was looking at him with a question in her eyes. Thorne ran a hand through his short-cropped hair. "Status of the Hail Mary protocol." Miller exchanged glances with the other officers. "Sir, even if we could get the signal through their jamming." "I didn't ask for commentary, Lieutenant." "Status? Ready, sir, but the transmission window will be brief. Their electronic warfare suite will detect and block it within seconds." Thorne nodded. "It would have to be enough." "Sir," Walker said quietly, "even if we can get the message out. Earth is 15 light-years away. No help can arrive in time." She hesitated, then added, what everyone was thinking. Earth doesn't have anything that could stand against this fleet anyway. Thorn moved to the center of the command bunker. All personnel, listen carefully. The dozen or so remaining officers and technicians turned to him. We're about to be overrun. I estimate we have hours, not days. He kept his voice steady through practiced discipline. But I need you to understand something. We are not just fighting for New Washington Colony. We are fighting for the survival of our species. He gestured to the tactical display showing the overwhelming Calderan force. They believe we're weak, primitive. They think they know everything about us because they intercepted some star charts and colony manifests. Their arrogance will be their undoing. Walker frowned. Thorn ignored her, continuing. I'm authorizing Hail Mary, full encryption package, tight beam transmission during their next barrage, when their sensors will be partially blinded by their own weapons' fire. Message content, sir? Asked the communications officer. Thorn's lips formed a hard line. 3 words. Execute. Protocol Lazarus. The bunker fell silent again, but this time with confusion rather than dread. Sir, Walker said carefully, I'm not familiar with any Protocol Lazarus. No, Thorn agreed. You wouldn't be. Only fleet admirals and colony commanders were briefed. He checked the chrono on his wrist. We need to time this perfectly. Their next barrage starts in 17 minutes. For the next quarter hour, the command staff worked with renewed focus, preparing the tight beam transmission that would need to pierce through layers of Keldar and jamming during the brief window when their weapons fire would create interference in their own sensor network. As the countdown approached 0, Thorn stood beside the communications array, hand hovering over the transmission key. Sir, Walker said beside him, voice low. Whatever this Lazarus protocol is, will it save us? Thorn met her gaze. Not us, Lieutenant, but humanity? God, I hope so. The bunker shook violently as the Keldaran barrage resumed right on schedule. Now, Miller shouted. Thorn slammed his palm down on the transmitter. The system hummed, drawing emergency power as it punched a signal through the atmosphere, past the Keldaran jamming, aimed precisely at Earth 15 light-years distant. Signal away, the communications officer reported. They're trying to block it, but... Confirmation received. The message got through. A ragged cheer went up around the bunker, quickly silenced as the overhead lights flickered and emergency power kicked in. They've targeted our position, Miller reported grimly. Direct hit, incoming. 30 seconds. Thorn nodded, oddly calm now that he'd completed his final duty. It's been an honor serving with all of you. Walker stood at attention beside him. What is Lazarus Protocol, sir? If you don't mind my asking before the end. Thorn smiled for the first time in days. Something the Keldarans don't know about us, Lieutenant. Something no one knows. The bunker shook more violently. Support beams groaned. The end was coming. Sir? Earth has a secret fleet, Lieutenant, hidden in the Oort cloud for 15 years, waiting. His smile turned fierce. The Keldarans think they're punishing an infant species that's barely learned to crawl out of its cradle. Another impact. Dust and concrete fell from the ceiling. Warning klaxons blared. They have no idea what they've awakened, Thorn whispered as the bunker began to collapse around them. No idea at all. The final bombardment struck with apocalyptic force, but Commander Jack Thorn died with that smile still on his face, knowing that across 15 light-years of space, Earth's secret fleet was about to become the galaxy's worst night. Supreme War Leader Kraz watched with clinical satisfaction as the human command bunker collapsed beneath the precision strike. These primitives had shown more resilience than anticipated, but the outcome had never been in doubt. The Keldaran Empire had extinguished 17 spacefaring species in its rise to dominance. Humans would be the 18th. Confirm elimination of the command structure, Kraz ordered. His second-in-command, Sub-War Leader Vex, consulted the sensor readings. Confirmed, Supreme War Leader. No survivors detected. Their defense grid is failing system-wide. Excellent. Proceed with the final phase. I want this colony sterilized by rotation's end. Around him, the command deck of the dreadnought, Inevitable Dominion, buzzed with efficient activity. The massive warship, over 2 kilometers in length, dwarfed anything the humans could field. Its weapons alone could reduce a planet's surface to slag. Against the pitiful defenses of these colony worlds, it was grotesque overkill, precisely the statement the Empire wished to make. Supreme War Leader, the communications officer interrupted. We detected a tight beam transmission from the command bunker before its destruction. It appeared to penetrate our jamming briefly. Kraz's upper eyes narrowed while his lower pair remained fixed on the tactical display. Content unknown, encrypted, but its trajectory suggests it was aimed toward their homeworld. Kraz dismissed the concern with a gesture. Irrelevant, a desperate plea for help, no doubt. Their homeworld is 15 light-years distant. By the time any response arrives, we will have moved on to eliminate Earth itself. Yes, Supreme War Leader. Kraz returned his attention to the bombardment. Another human settlement disappeared from the tactical display. Everything proceeded. Supreme War Leader. Anomalous readings at the system's edge. Kraz's head snapped toward the sensor officer. Explain! Multiple gravitational distortions forming pattern is consistent with artificial wormhole generation. Impossible! The humans were generations away from such technology. Show me! The main view screen shifted to display the outer system, where empty space had been moments before. Reality itself seemed to tear open. Not one rift, but dozens, each expanding into a perfect circle of swirling energy. Battle stations, Kraz ordered, caution overriding disbelief. All ships, defensive formation, prepare main batteries. The Keldaran fleet, still arranged in bombardment configuration, began the laborious process of realigning for combat. Not that Kraz expected serious resistance. Perhaps these were reinforcements from another human colony. A futile last stand. The first ship emerged from the largest wormhole. Kraz stared in stunned silence. This was no human colonial vessel. The ship was massive, easily matching the inevitable Dominion size, but with lines unlike anything in known space. Its hull was midnight black, absorbing rather than reflecting light, making its true dimensions difficult to gauge. No visible weapon emplacements marked its surface, yet something about its sleek predatory design suggested terrible purpose. Classification? Kraz demanded. Unknown configuration. The tactical officer replied, voice wavering. No match in Imperial records. More ships appeared. Dozens. Then hundreds. A vast armada emerging from wormholes throughout the system. Large vessels and small, all bearing the same black hull material, all moving with coordinated precision. Our Vex whispered beside him. The humans are pre-FTL. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Kraz had no answer. The view screen shifted as a communication request came through. Kraz nodded, and the image resolved to show a human male in a uniform unlike those of the colonial defenders, crisp black with silver accents. No name or rank insignia visible. This is Admiral Thomas Marshall of the Earth Strategic Defense Fleet. You have attacked a human colony and committed genocide against our people. Surrender immediately, or be destroyed. Kraz regained his composure. Whatever these ships were, the Keldaran Empire had ruled the stars for millennia. They would not be intimidated. This is Supreme War Leader Kraz. Your deception is impressive, human, but futile. The Keldaran Empire does not surrender. We have 73 warships in this system. Your colonies fall before us like insects. The human's expression remained impassive. You had 73 warships, War Leader. Observe. The view screen split to show a tactical overview. The black ships had already surrounded the Keldaran fleet. Before Kraz could respond, multiple destroyer-class Keldaran vessels simply disappeared. No explosions, no debris. One moment they existed, the next they were gone. What happened? Kraz demanded of his tactical officer. Report. Unknown weapon signature. They're using some kind of localized singularity. Our shields had no effect. For the first time in his military career, Kraz felt fear. Lieutenant Sarah Walker wasn't dead. This realization came slowly as consciousness returned. The command bunker hadn't completely collapsed. She was trapped in a pocket of surviving infrastructure along with a handful of other officers, including young Miller from Tactical. Lieutenant, you're awake. Miller's face was streaked with blood and dust, but his eyes were wide with something other than pain or fear. What happened? She managed, throat dry. The bunker took a direct hit, but the inner core held. He helped her to a sitting position, but that's not important. Listen. At first, she heard nothing but the settling of debris and the groan of stressed metal. Then she noticed it. The bombardment had stopped. "How long was I out?" "About 20 minutes, Miller replied. "The Keldaran attack stopped about 5 minutes ago. Just ceased completely." Walker frowned. "The Keldarans wouldn't stop until the colony was obliterated, unless—" "Commander Thorne, did he—" Miller shook his head. "Didn't make it. That section took the worst hit." Walker closed her eyes briefly. Thorne had died sending that message. Protocol Lazarus, he'd called it. "Earth has a secret fleet, Lieutenant. Hidden in the Oort cloud for 15 years. Wait." A crackling noise interrupted her thoughts. Their emergency communicator was receiving a transmission. "This is Admiral Thomas Marshall of the Earth Strategic Defense Fleet broadcasting on all frequencies, all surviving colonial forces and civilians. The Keldaran threat has been contained." "Repeat, the Keldaran threat has been contained. Rescue operations commencing. Hold position and await extraction." Walker and Miller exchanged stunned glances. "Earth Strategic Defense Fleet," Miller whispered. "What the hell is that?" Aboard his flagship Retribution, Admiral Thomas Marshall watched the battle with cold satisfaction. It wasn't really a battle, more an execution. Decades of preparation were paying off in a single devastating display of technological superiority. "Group 3 has eliminated the Keldaran western flank," his tactical officer reported. "No losses. Group 5 has disabled their screening vessels. The Keldaran flagship is now isolated, Admiral." Marshall nodded. "Open a channel to the flagship." When Kraz's face appeared on screen, the Keldaran's composure had visibly cracked. All 4 eyes darted frantically between off-screen displays. "You lied," Kraz snarled. "Your species is not pre-FTL. Those ships, that technology—" "We never claimed to be pre-FTL," Marshall interrupted. "You assumed. We simply didn't correct your misconception." "Impossible. We've been monitoring Earth for decades. We detected no advanced technology." Marshall allowed himself a small smile. "Yes, that was rather the point. 70 years earlier, Earth had detected its first alien transmission, a casual conversation between Keldaran ships passing through a neighboring system. The message had been clear: the galaxy was occupied, and its rulers did not tolerate competition. Rather than announce themselves to the stars, Earth's leaders had made an unprecedented decision. While maintaining the appearance of a slowly developing pre-FTL civilization, sending out modest colony ships, they had secretly poured resources into a hidden fleet, ships built in scattered facilities throughout the solar system, using technology developed in isolation, powered by theoretical physics that the Keldarans had never explored. "Your 68th world to fall," Marshall said, "was to be our first demonstration. Your overconfidence blinded you to the trap you were walking into." Kraz's features contorted with rage. "The Keldaran Empire spans 1,000 worlds. This fleet of wars changes nothing. When the Empire learns of this—" "They already have," Marshall cut in. "While we've been talking, similar fleets have engaged Keldaran forces in 7 other systems. Your Empire is facing coordinated attacks across its entire border with human space." This was the true purpose of Protocol Lazarus. Not just a defensive measure, but the trigger for a long-planned first strike. The supposedly primitive humans had been biding their time, studying their would-be conquerors, preparing for the inevitable conflict. "You're bluffing," Kraz said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Am I?" "Your long-range communications have been blocked for the past hour. You've received no updates from your fleet command, have you?" The Keldaran's silence was answer enough. "Here's what happens next," Marshall continued. "Your remaining ships will power down weapons and engines. Your crews will be interned. Your Empire will open diplomatic channels with Earth, or this demonstration will be repeated at every Keldaran world within range. The choice is yours." Kraz stared in disbelief. "You would destroy our worlds? Our civilians? After condemning us for targeting yours?" "No," Marshall replied firmly. "Unlike you, we distinguish between military and civilian targets, but we will dismantle your military capacity system by system until you recognize humanity as equals, not prey." He terminated the transmission and turned to his second-in-command. "Status of the Keldaran fleet: 47 vessels destroyed, 21 disabled and drifting, The flagship and 4 escorts remain combat-capable but surrounded. Marshall watched as the inevitable Dominion attempted to rally its remaining escorts. A futile gesture. "They're not surrendering," his tactical officer noted. "No, pride won't allow it," Marshall sighed. "Very well, neutralize the remaining vessels, minimum casualties if possible, but the threat ends now." The black ships closed in. The remaining Keldaran vessels fought with desperate ferocity, their weapons flaring against the void, but their beams and projectiles simply disappeared into the light-absorbing hulls of Earth's fleet. The advanced shields that had shrugged off the colonial defenses proved equally ineffective against weapons based on principles the Keldarans had never encountered. One by one, the last Keldaran ships went dark, disabled by precision strikes. Only the dreadnought remained, its massive weapons still firing in defiance. Final warning transmitted. Communications reported. No response. Marshall nodded. "End it." 5 Earth vessels converged on the inevitable Dominion. There was no dramatic explosion, no fiery destruction. Instead, localized singularities appeared at strategic points along its hull, carving the massive ship into harmless segments. Within moments, the pride of the Keldaran fleet drifted in pieces, its crew either dead or trapped in isolated compartments. All Keldaran forces neutralized. Admiral, tactical confirmed. New Washington colony is secure. Marshall gazed at the view screen showing the battered planet below. "Begin rescue operations immediately, and send word Earth Operation Lazarus is complete. Phase 2 may commence." Across the system, Earth's black ships moved into defensive positions around the human colony, a grim promise to any who might threaten humanity again. The galaxy's newest nightmare had arrived. Grand Sovereign Dres, supreme ruler of the Keldaran Empire, gazed out over the central spire of Keldara Prime. The gleaming metropolis stretched to the horizon, a testament to 1,000 years of uncontested dominance. The tallest structures pierced the low-hanging clouds, their architecture designed to inspire both awe and terror. Emotions the Keldaran leadership had long ago learned were 2 sides of the same coin. "How many ships lost?" he asked without turning to face the military council assembled behind him. Fleet Commander Tevik shifted uncomfortably. 43% of our forward fleets, Grand Sovereign. 817 vessels confirmed destroyed across 17 systems. Another 200 unaccounted for. 9 colony worlds have fallen silent. The silence that followed was suffocating. "And these? Humans," Dres said, the word like it tasted bitter. "What do we know of their capabilities now?" The intelligence director stepped forward. "Their technology exceeds our projections by approximately 3 centuries. Grand Sovereign. Their ships utilize principles our scientists don't fully understand. Most concerning is their apparent mastery of dimensional phasing and artificial singularity generation." "Impossible," hissed another counselor. "No species develops such technology in isolation." "Yet, they have," Tivik replied grimly. "And they hid it from us perfectly. While we observed their primitive colony ships limping between stars at sublight speeds, they were building this." He gestured to the holographic display showing the black ships that had decimated the Keldaran fleet at New Washington colony. Dres finally turned from the window. "And what of the human diplomatic communique?" The council members exchanged uneasy glances. "They demand unconditional withdrawal from all human-claimed systems," the diplomatic minister said. "Recognition of human sovereignty, reparations for colonial losses, and—" he hesitated. "Continue," Dres commanded. "And they request your presence, Grand Sovereign, for direct negotiations." Aboard their command vessel, in orbit around Keldara Prime, murmurs of shock rippled through the chamber. "They're already here?" someone gasped. "A single ship," Tevik confirmed. "It appeared 2 hours ago through what we now recognize as a controlled wormhole aperture. Our defensive fleet has surrounded it, but given recent events, they would be ineffective," Dres finished coldly. "The humans know this. That's why they sent only 1 ship to demonstrate their contempt." He returned to the window, but his gaze now lifted to the sky. Somewhere up there, a human vessel waited, a predator among prey. How had the tables turned so quickly? "I will meet them," he decided. "Prepare my shuttle." Admiral Thomas Marshall stood alone at the observation deck of the Harbinger, Earth's most advanced diplomatic vessel. Below him, Keldara Prime rotated slowly, a jewel of blue-green continents and silver cities, beautiful even knowing the atrocities its rulers had committed across the stars. The door behind him hissed open. "They have accepted," Captain Diane Freeman reported. "The Grand Sovereign himself is en route. ETA 15 minutes. Marshall nodded. "And our other operations proceeding as scheduled. Task Force Oracle has secured the Proxima shipyards. Task Force Delphi has neutralized their forward command at Epsilon Eridani. The Keldaran military infrastructure is collapsing faster than our models predicted. They built their strategy on the assumption of technological superiority," Marshall replied. "Remove that advantage, and their tactical doctrine falls apart." Freeman moved to stand beside him at the viewport. "Sir, the crew is talking about the final phase, about what we're really planning to do with the Keldarans." Marshall's expression remained impassive. "Are they concerned?" "Some are, yes. The military objective is clear. The Keldarans posed an existential threat to humanity and needed to be neutralized. But complete extinction of a species, that's another matter." "Is that what they think we're here for? Genocide?" Freeman hesitated. "The rumors about Project Genesis have spread, about our true capabilities." Marshall sighed. "Then it's time they understood what we're really fighting for. Have the senior staff attend the negotiations. Full broadcast to all Earth vessels." Lieutenant Sarah Walker still couldn't believe she was here. 3 weeks ago, she'd been trapped in a collapsed bunker on New Washington Colony, certain of death. Now she stood in a shuttle bay aboard the most advanced ship in human history, watching as the ruler of the Keldaran Empire surrendered himself to human custody. The Keldaran shuttle settled onto the deck with precise movements. Its design was ornate, covered in what appeared to be ceremonial markings, a stark contrast to the utilitarian black of the Earth vessel. "Nervous?" Miller asked beside her. The young tactical officer had been promoted after the battle, as had she. There weren't many survivors to fill the command ranks. "Wouldn't you be?" Walker replied. "That's the being who ordered the destruction of our colony, who killed Commander Thorne and thousands of others. And now he comes to us as a supplicant," Miller observed. "Funny how quickly things change." The shuttle's ramp extended. 4 Keldaran guards emerged first, their ceremonial armor gleaming under the bay lights. Behind them came Grand Sovereign Drez. Walker had expected someone physically imposing. Instead, Drez was smaller than the average Keldaran, with paler skin and only the faintest hint of the gill slits that characterized his species. But there was no mistaking the cold authority in his four-eyed gaze as it swept across the assembled humans. Admiral Marshall stepped forward. "Grand Sovereign Drez, welcome aboard the Harbinger. I am Admiral Thomas Marshall of the Earth Strategic Defense Fleet." Drez inclined his head slightly, the barest acknowledgement. "You have demanded this meeting, Admiral. I have complied. State your term." "Not here," Marshall replied evenly. "Please follow me to the diplomatic chamber." Walker and Miller fell into step with the other staff officers as the procession moved through the ship's corridors. She noticed the Keldarans looking around with poorly concealed fascination at the technology surrounding them. The diplomatic chamber was a large, circular room dominated by a round table. Windows on all sides showed the curve of Keldara Prime below and the stars beyond. The Keldaran defensive fleet was visible at a distance, hundreds of ships maintaining a respectful, or perhaps fearful, perimeter around the single Earth vessel. Once all were seated, Marshall activated the table's central holographic projector. "Before we discuss terms," the Admiral began, "there's something you should understand about us, about Earth, about why we deceived you for so long." The hologram showed a star system Walker didn't recognize. 70 years ago, we detected Keldaran communications. We learned of your empire, of your policy toward emerging species. Marshall's voice remained measured, but Walker could hear the steel beneath. "We faced a choice, announce ourselves and be subjugated, or hide our true progress and prepare." Drez's upper eyes narrowed. "A deception spanning generations. Your people maintained an elaborate facade, primitive colony ships, outdated technology, while secretly building this fleet. Why reveal yourselves now? Why not remain hidden until you could overwhelm our entire empire, not just our border fleets?" "Because of Dover Station," Walker found herself saying. All eyes turned to her, and she flushed, realizing she'd spoken out of turn. Marshall nodded for her to continue. The attack on Dover Station forced our hand, Walker explained. We were prepared to maintain the deception for decades more, to build our strength further. But once you crossed that line, once you began killing our people, we had no choice but to respond. A regrettable necessity, Dres said dismissively. Your species represents a fundamental threat to Keldaran security. No, Marshall countered. We represented a threat to Keldaran's supremacy, not the same thing. He changed the holographic display. Now it showed an ancient starship of unfamiliar design. What you're seeing is the vessel Pathfinder. Approximately 15,000 years old. We discovered it buried beneath the Martian surface 50 years ago. Walker stared in shock. This was classified beyond anything she'd been briefed on. Impossible, one of the Keldaran advisors blurted. No such discovery was detected by our observation posts. Because we made sure you were looking elsewhere, Marshall replied. The Pathfinder contained technology far beyond anything humanity had developed. More importantly, it contained records of a galactic civilization that predated even the Keldaran Empire, a civilization that was systematically eradicated. Dres had gone very still. The precursors, he whispered. A myth? A story to frighten children. Not a myth, Marshall corrected. The Pathfinder was one of their last vessels. Its crew placed themselves in stasis, hoping to outlast the catastrophe that was consuming their civilization. They failed. The stasis systems degraded over millennia, but their knowledge survived, their warnings survived. The hologram shifted again, showing technical schematics that Walker couldn't begin to comprehend. Humanity didn't develop dimensional phasing or singularity weapons, Marshall continued. We found them, adapted them. The precursors were destroyed by an enemy they called the Devourers, a species so consumed by the need for dominance that they eliminated any civilization that might one day challenge them. Understanding dawned on Walker's face. The Keldarans, you're saying that? No, Marshall interrupted. The Keldarans are not the Devourers, but they followed the same path, the same philosophy. Destroy potential competitors before they can become actual threats. Dres's composure cracked. You compare us to the Devourers. The ancient evil? We maintain order in the galaxy. We prevent chaos. You prevent evolution, Marshall countered. Natural competition. The advancement that comes from diversity of thought and approach. The precursors understood this. They believed in cooperation, in the strength that comes from difference. The Devourers feared it. The Admiral leaned forward. Which brings us to our terms, Grand Sovereign. Humanity does not seek the destruction of the Keldaran Empire, we seek its transformation. The holographic display changed to show a political map of the galaxy, with the Keldaran Empire highlighted in red, surrounded by smaller territories in various colors. Your borders will contract. Independent worlds along your frontier will be granted autonomy, and Earth will oversee a new galactic council, with the Keldarans as founding members, alongside humanity and any other species willing to participate. Or, Dres demanded, or we continue what we've begun. Marshall said simply, your military infrastructure is already crippled. Your fleets are in disarray. How long do you think your empire would last if we deployed our full capabilities? The implied threat hung in the air. And if we agree to these terms? Dres asked finally. Marshall's expression softened slightly. Then we share with you what we learned from the Pathfinder, because the precursors' records contained one more critical piece of information. Grand Sovereign, the Devourers are still out there. Dormant, perhaps, waiting in the spaces between galaxies, but someday they will return. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. You need us, Dres realized. Despite your technological advantage, despite everything, you need allies for what's coming. We need each other, Marshall corrected. The precursors faced the Devourers alone, and they fell. We intend to learn from their mistake. 3 months later, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Walker stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Earth vessel Thorn, named after her fallen commander. Below her, the First Galactic Council Summit was concluding on the neutral world of Proxima Centauri. The door behind her opened. Admiral Marshall entered, looking tired but satisfied. The treaties are signed, he announced. The Keldaran Empire is officially dissolved. In its place, the Keldaran Republic joins 27 other systems in the Galactic Council. And the Devourers? Walker asked quietly. Marshall moved to stand beside her at the viewport. No sign yet, but our long-range sensors now extend to the galactic rim. If, when they come, we'll be ready. Walker nodded, watching as ships from a dozen different species moved in orbit around the planet below. Former enemies, now cautious allies. It's strange, she said. Commander Thorne died thinking he'd activated a weapon. A force that would avenge humanity. But it was never about vengeance, was it? No, Marshall agreed. Project Lazarus, the Black Fleet, they were always meant as a shield, not just a sword. Thorne understood the mission, even if he didn't know all the details. And what is the mission, sir? Really? Marshall smiled faintly. The same as it's been since we found the Pathfinder, Commander, to ensure that what happened to the precursors never happens again. To any species, he gestured to the ships gathering below. This is just the beginning. The real work starts now. Walker looked out at the stars, stretching to infinity. Somewhere out there in the darkness between galaxies, an ancient enemy waited. But they would not find an easy conquest this time, not with humanity standing watch. Earth's secret fleet had emerged from hiding, not just as the galaxy's worst nightmare, but as its best hope.